Hi, my name is Lily, and I'm 27 years old. Last week, I received an invitation to my company's annual work party. At first, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go. I'm not the type of person who enjoys big events or being surrounded by people I barely know. But my best friend insisted, saying, "You should go. It might surprise you." After some thought, I decided to give it a try. I'd only been working at the company for a few months, and I wanted to make a good impression. Even though the idea of mingling with colleagues made me nervous, I told myself it would be a chance to step out of my comfort zone. If things got awkward, I could always leave early. On the night of the party, I spent extra time getting ready. I chose a simple black dress that felt both elegant and comfortable. As I looked in the mirror, I took a deep breath and tried to push my nerves aside. "It's just a few hours," I reminded myself. "You can handle this." When I arrived at the venue, I was immediately overwhelmed by the energy in the room. The space was beautifully decorated, with string lights hanging from the ceiling and soft music playing in the background. Groups of people stood chatting and laughing, holding drinks in their hands. I felt out of place but told myself to stay and give it a chance. Walking into the room, I felt like I didn't belong. Everyone seemed to know each other, and I wasn't sure where to start. I grabbed a drink from the bar and stood by the wall, trying to act like I was comfortable. My eyes scanned the crowd, searching for someone familiar, but I didn't recognize anyone. The music was upbeat, and people were laughing loudly, but I felt small and invisible. I sipped my drink and thought about leaving, but I knew it would look bad if I disappeared so soon. "Just stay for 1 hour," I told myself. "You can do this." I glanced at my phone, hoping it would distract me for a while. As I stood there, I noticed a few other people who also seemed unsure of what to do. It made me feel a little less alone, but I still couldn't bring myself to approach anyone. I took another sip of my drink and decided to explore the room a bit. Maybe moving around would help me feel more at ease. Just as I was about to take a step, someone accidentally bumped into me. My drink slipped out of my hand, splashing all over the front of my dress. "Oh no!" I gasped, looking down at the mess. My cheeks burned with embarrassment, and I felt like running out of the room right then and there. Before I could react, the person who bumped into me quickly apologized. "I'm so sorry," he said, handing me a napkin. He looked genuinely concerned, which made me feel a bit better. "It's okay," I replied, trying to laugh it off, even though I wanted to disappear. I dabbed at my dress, but the stain didn't seem to go away. "I didn't mean to ruin your night," he said with an awkward smile. I looked up at him for the first time and noticed how kind his eyes were. "It's fine really," I said, feeling a little calmer. "I think this party just got more interesting." He laughed, and for some reason, it made me feel less embarrassed. He introduced himself as Ethan, a colleague from a different department. "I don't think we've met before," he said. "I'm pretty new here." I smiled and introduced myself, realizing we were in the same boat. Somehow, talking to him made the room feel less intimidating, and I started to relax. As we cleaned up the mess, he joked, "Well, I guess this is one way to break the ice." I laughed for the first time that night, feeling like things might not be so bad after all. What started as an awkward moment was slowly turning into something I hadn't expected. A real conversation. After the drink incident, Ethan and I kept talking, and the conversation felt surprisingly easy. He asked how long I had been with the company, and I told him it had only been a few months. "Same here," he said with a grin. "I guess we're both the new kids trying to figure things out." That small connection instantly made me feel more comfortable. We joked about how neither of us really knew anyone at the party. "I was thinking of sneaking out early," I admitted, laughing a little. "Same here," he replied. "But I guess now I have a reason to stay." His casual confidence was refreshing, and it was nice not to feel so alone in the crowd. Ethan talked about how he had moved to the city for the job and was still getting used to everything. I shared a little about my own experience, including how nervous I'd been about coming to the party. "Well, if it helps, I think you're doing great," he said, and his words made me smile. As the music played in the background, I realized I wasn't even thinking about leaving anymore. Ethan's relaxed energy and sense of humor made the night feel much less intimidating. For the first time since I arrived, I felt like I could actually enjoy myself. The more we talked, the more I realized how much we had in common. We both enjoyed hiking on weekends, and we even liked the same kind of music. "Wait, you're a fan of indie rock too?" he asked, surprised. "That's rare around here." I laughed and said, "Well, maybe we're just cooler than we thought." Ethan shared a funny story about his first week at the office when he accidentally sent an email to the wrong department. "It was so embarrassing," he said, shaking his head. "But now it's kind of funny." I couldn't stop laughing, and I told him about my own first-day disaster, where I got lost trying to find the break room. As the conversation flowed, I felt my nerves disappearing completely. Ethan had a way of making everything seem light-hearted and easy. We talked about our favorite books, dream travel destinations, and even swapped recommendations for local coffee shops. The connection felt natural, like we'd known each other for longer than just a few minutes. At one point he said, "I'm glad I bumped into you, literally. This night turned out way better than I expected." I smiled, feeling the same way. What had started as a disaster was now one of the best parts of my week. I was genuinely glad I decided to stay. As the conversation continued, the music shifted to a more upbeat song, and a group of colleagues started dancing in the center of the room. Ethan looked at me with a playful grin. "What do you think? Want to join them?" I hesitated, laughing nervously. "I'm not much of a dancer," I admitted, but he didn't seem to care. "Come on, it'll be fun," he said, holding out his hand. I took a deep breath and decided to go for it. We walked onto the dance floor, and before I knew it, we were laughing and moving to the music. I wasn't worried about looking silly or out of place anymore. It was just fun. Ethan's energy was contagious, and he made me feel like I could let go and enjoy the moment. At one point, he even pulled off a ridiculous dance move that made me laugh so hard I almost forgot where I was. For the first time in a long time, I felt completely in the moment. As the song ended, I realized I wasn't thinking about leaving or feeling nervous anymore. I was having a great time, and it was all thanks to this unexpected connection. The night was turning into something far better than I ever could have imagined. After the dance floor, Ethan and I decided to step outside for some fresh air. The night was cool and calm, with the soft hum of city life in the distance. We found a quiet spot near a garden area, away from the noise of the party. I leaned against a railing, feeling the crisp breeze on my face, and Ethan stood beside me, looking up at the stars. "So what brought you to this company?" he asked, his tone relaxed. I told him about my journey, how I had moved to the city for a fresh start and was still figuring things out. He listened intently, nodding as I spoke. Then he shared his own story, explaining how he had switched careers and taken a risk to join the company. His honesty made me feel like I could be open with him too. We talked about our dreams and goals, and the conversation felt deeper than I expected. Ethan mentioned his love for photography and how it helped him stay grounded. I shared my desire to travel someday, exploring places I'd only read about in books. Our words flowed naturally, as if we'd known each other for longer than just one evening. As we stood there, I realized how much I appreciated his calm presence. He wasn't trying to impress me or fill the silence with meaningless chatter. Instead, he made me feel seen and heard, something I didn't expect from a work party. It was in that quiet moment that I started to think this night might be more special than I'd imagined. Eventually, The party began to wind down. People were saying their goodbyes, and the music softened to a slower tune. Ethan and I walked back inside to grab our things, still chatting as if the night could go on forever. The once crowded room was now quieter, and the atmosphere felt more intimate. As we stood near the exit, Ethan looked at me and said, "I had a great time tonight. Thanks for not running away after the drink incident." I laughed, shaking my head. "Well, I'm glad I didn't. This turned out way better than I expected." His smile was genuine, and for a moment, I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the party. Before I could overthink it, Ethan asked, "Would you like to grab coffee sometime?" No pressure, but I'd love to continue our conversation. His question caught me by surprise, but I found myself nodding without hesitation. "I'd like that," I said, feeling a mix of excitement and disbelief. We exchanged numbers, and I saved his name in my phone with a small smile. As I left the venue, I couldn't stop replaying the night in my head. What had started as an awkward, nerve-wracking experience had turned into something completely unexpected. I walked home with a lightness in my step, thinking about the possibilities that the future might hold. The next morning, I woke up with a smile still lingering on my face. Lying in bed, I replayed the events of the party in my mind. I thought about how nervous I'd been at the start and how everything changed after meeting Ethan. It felt surreal, like one of those rare nights where everything seems to fall into place. I picked up my phone and saw a text from him. "Good morning. Hope you're recovering from all the dancing," it said, followed by a smiley face. I couldn't help but laugh as I replied, "Barely. But it was totally worth it." It felt natural, easy, like continuing a conversation that hadn't really ended. As I got ready for the day, I couldn't shake the feeling of excitement. It wasn't just about Ethan, it was about taking a chance on something I would normally avoid. I thought about how stepping out of my comfort zone had led to such a memorable experience. It reminded me that sometimes the best things happen when you least expect them. I didn't know what would come next, but I felt ready to find out. The party was just the beginning of something new. A moment that turned into a story I knew I'd carry with me. Whatever the future held, I was grateful for that night and the chance to let life surprise me. As the weekend approached, Ethan and I planned to meet for coffee. The thought of seeing him again brought a mix of excitement and nervousness, but mostly, I felt curious about where this new connection might lead. I spent a little extra time getting ready that morning, choosing a cozy sweater and a simple hairstyle that felt like me. When I arrived at the cafe, Ethan was already waiting by the door. He greeted me with a warm smile, and for a moment, the nervousness melted away. "I'm glad you made it," he said, holding the door open for me. The cafe smelled like freshly brewed coffee and pastries, creating a relaxed and inviting atmosphere. We talked for hours, laughing about the party and sharing more about our lives. It felt easy, like picking up where we left off. Ethan told me about his favorite places to photograph in the city, and I shared my love for baking and how I was still learning to navigate my new job. It was the kind of conversation that felt effortless, like we were both exactly where we were meant to be. As we said goodbye that afternoon, Ethan asked if we could do this again sometime. I smiled, already knowing my answer. "I'd like that," I said. Walking away, I felt a sense of hope and happiness that stayed with me for the rest of the day. What started as an awkward spill at a work party had turned into the beginning of something I hadn't even known I was looking for. A new story, a new chapter, and maybe, just maybe, something more.